order the second hearing of the State Government, Local Government, and Veterans Committee. Welcome to the committee and thank you. This is our second hearing. I'm grateful to see you all here. We have two bills up today. The first, Senator Champion is going to move his bill dealing with the establishment of the holiday, the state holiday of Juneteenth, and then we're going to take up the PRO Act. And before we take up the PRO Act, I will have some instruction for the room to make sure that we are doing our work civilly and completely. I want the committee and members of the audience that are with us, anybody that's listening, to know that it is our intention today to get through both of these proposals, to take a vote and move them on to their next destinations. And with that, I do want to make sure that I announce that we've had two new members joining this committee, Senator Lang, who is not yet here, I don't think, and Senator Gustafson. Senator Gustafson, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. I am Heather Gustafson. I represent SD 36, which is 9 cities, but primarily Vadnais Heights, White Bear Lake, and Lino Lakes. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And when Senator Lang arrives, we will we'll make sure he's introduced as well. I'm glad you're here, Gus, for us. Heather, it's great that you're here and a part of this committee. I want to make sure people know that there is a quorum present. And with that, Senator Champion, welcome to the committee. We're here today to hear Senate File 13.
So first of all, let me just say thank you to the chair and to all the members of this committee. I sincerely appreciate you all taking the opportunity to hear this bill, specifically Senate File 13. Juneteenth. And it's really interesting for me, for you to hear me say Juneteenth, because ever since I was a little boy, we talked about the importance of Juneteenth and we celebrated Juneteenth. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, so let me just say this. Juneteenth is a day to reflect on history and work forward with purpose. And when you think about Senate File 13, it is intended for this stated purpose. Historically, those who were freed from bondage celebrated their long overdue emancipation on June 19th. Today, our state and nation should commemorate Juneteenth. This is a chance to celebrate human freedom, reflect on grievous and ongoing legacies of slavery, and rededicate ourselves to rooting out the systemic racism that continues to plague our society as we strive to deliver the full promise of America to every American. This Juneteenth, we are and should be freshly reminded that Juneteenth is a day to reflect on both bondage and freedom, but a day of both pain and purpose. It is, in equal measure, a remembrance of both the long and hard night of slavery and subjugation, as well as celebration of promise of a brighter morning to come. My hope is that Juneteenth holiday, we will remember our extraordinary capacity to heal, to hope, and to emerge from our worst moments as a stronger, freer, and more just state and nation. It is also a day, as I mentioned, to celebrate the power and resilience of Black Americans who have endured generations of oppression in the ongoing journey towards equal justice, equal dignity, equal rights, and equal opportunity in America. My dream for us this legislative session is I want the governor to sign bipartisan legislation establishing Juneteenth as our newest state holiday. And if we have to do it alone, then we have to do it alone. But it would be my hope that we have bipartisan support so that all Minnesotans can feel the power of this day, learn from our history, celebrate our progress, and recognize and engage in the work that continues. Great nations do not ignore their most painful moments, they face them. We grow stronger as a country and state when we honestly confront our past injustices, including the profound suffering and injustice wrought by slavery and generations of segregation and discrimination against Black Americans. To heal, we must remember. We must never rest until the promise of our nation's promises, as exercised through states, are made real for all Americans. So the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans was not the end of our nation's work to deliver on the promise of equality. It was only the beginning. With a state-recognized Juneteenth holiday, we recommit ourselves to our shared work to ensure racial justice, equity, and equality. We commemorate the generations of struggles led by everyday Americans who have brought our nation closer to its fulfilling purpose. The late Congressman Elijah Cummings said, "Our children are the living messengers we send to a future we will never see." I often remind people that I was born and raised in Minnesota. My parents left the South for Minnesota. Throughout my upbringing, we have always recognized Juneteenth and focused not only on the pain, but on our collective work together for progress. Now, we stand in this moment together as members of the Senate to pass legislation to make Juneteenth a holiday and promote the notion to build a state and country that we are all proud to pass along to our children. One where the foundational promises and ideas of America ring true for every child and every family. So this is just not a holiday. It is an opportunity for us to recognize, celebrate, but recommit ourselves to a greater purpose. So I'm asking, I'm willing to stand for any questions, because I know that sometimes people say, what about the fiscal issue? Well, think about this. There's a federal holiday. The governor and others have recognized Juneteenth as being an important notion and an important day. So the costs are minimum, if any. We, as the Senate, recognize Juneteenth as a holiday. We said, hey, this is important enough that we're giving you time off. So we want the state to follow our lead because we are good leaders. At least I believe that. Now, there might be some in the back of me who don't believe that, but I believe that we are good leaders. And good leaders meet the moment. I quoted Martin Luther King yesterday when we were talking about driver's license for all, but it's also meaningful and important right here. Martin Luther King says that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands at the time of convenience and comfort, but it is where he stands at the time of challenge or controversy. That's how we're going to be measured. Did we meet the moment? So I'm asking you not to be thrown off by the fiscal cost, because it's minimum, not be thrown off by sometimes people are ashamed to look at a painful situation and they go, oh, no, I don't want to be reminded of that. You can either choose to be stuck in the pain or be catapulted into progress. I think we can do both, because we can both chew gum and walk at the same time. So it is for that reason I stand for any questions that you might have about Juneteenth, what we should do, not do. I'm here to answer any challenging questions. And notice, I'm sitting alone. But I'm not alone because I know that there are other people who support this as well. It sort of reminds me of that Verizon commercial where one person's up front, but then they got all the other people in back of them. That is both those folks who are here with us and those who are at home and work because they can't be, and I'm representing their interests as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, and I didn't mean to go on too long, but I wanted to make sure I could lay the context and groundwork why this bill is very important.
Thank you, Senator Champion. It is appropriate that this is the first bill that we are hearing in state and local government and veterans today. You remind us of the best of us. You remind us of our persistent pursuit of freedom. And as you say, we're here to meet the moment. I say, this is what we're here for. So thank you for bringing this. Thank you for making time and coming to the committee to be the first. And with that, members, are there questions for Senator Champion? All right, Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Champion, for bringing the bill forward. You mentioned something about a fiscal cost to this, and I'm wondering, did you ask for a fiscal note on the bill?
Madam Chair and Senator Anderson, I did not ask for a fiscal cost on this bill because I recognize that it would be minimum now that we have a federal holiday and others are already, doing their part as well. So I don't have a fiscal note on it.
Thank you, Senator Champion.
Okay.
Senator Anderson. Thank you, Senator Champion. Did you have anything?
Yeah, Madam Chair, there was not a fiscal note request because typically there's no cost associated with these bills. Oftentimes the holiday is already negotiated into state employee contracts and the employees are already being paid, whether they're at work or whether they would be on a paid holiday. So from the state perspective, there's not a cost for that.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Senator Champion, for bringing this forward. Always part of the work that you do. Proud to serve with you. And as I reflect on what you just said right now, and in the work that we do, you said, to heal, we must remember, right? To heal, we must remember. And I think about the constant struggle, the inequities and the disparities that we see in housing, home ownership, in our educational system, in policing, and so on. And the constant fight that you mentioned also for equal justice and equal dignity and equal rights. So I'm really, really proud and happy to see this go forward today and hope to see it. I'm confident to see it pass, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Champion, for bringing this. I am enthusiastically supportive of your bill. I really just want to note that for Black Americans, we carry with us the legacy of chattel slavery, the triumph of emancipation, the triumph of Reconstruction, the trauma of what came after. And in my name, actually, my ancestors were part of the May, M-A-Y plantation. And after emancipation, they added the E for emancipation. And that's how I got M-A-Y-E, Aaron McEwen. And that will carry on into my daughter and to my nephew and to future generations. And the reason why this is so important is because the 250,000 enslaved people in Galveston, Texas, didn't find out for 2 years that they were free, for 2 years. And so when you talk about remembering so we can move forward, this is such a great day. It is a day I've also celebrated Juneteenth for a long time. It's a day of joy. It is a day of celebration. I've had the honor of singing the Black National Anthem with my father at our Juneteenth celebrations. And so I really, really look forward to this passing through this committee and off of the Senate floor, because this is a day that has been recognized federally, and we're going to recognize it in the state. And I thank you so much for all the work that you have done and you are doing, and particularly on this bill. So thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Chair,
Senator Champion.
I'd like to remind people that Black history is American history. Black history is American history. We are history. So we don't want to forget any part of our history, even the part of it that's rough and challenging, because there's somewhere in it is a learning that we can even use to propel us today. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, am strongly in support of this. And I would like to add to your history comment, I grew up in Minnesota as well. I never remembered learning about this. I learned about it in my 20s when I was doing a work project, and have followed it since, and am so glad it finally has gotten the recognition it deserves. While you were speaking, I wanted to see where this stood in other states. So I found under the Congressional Research Service, and this was as of last summer, that over 20 states have already also done this at the state level. So to a certain extent, we're not the last, but we're a little behind. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited that we're finally catching up and adding our state's name to that list. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Champion, I have to say that you said something that came close to what I wanted to say, and that was that you have Black history, you have American history, but all too often we have had Black history and white history that had a firewall. And, you know, and I'm sometimes get angry that I didn't know all of our history, the American history. And, you know, as old as I am here on the committee, I didn't find out about the Tulsa Race Massacre until just recently. I didn't find out what Juneteenth meant until just recently. So, you know, the mere act of being able to recognize this as a holiday helps us understand more of the history of all of us, and it takes away that firewall. And I really thank you for promoting this and pushing it, and I really strongly support it. So thank you for bringing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward. Listening to you with your eloquent opening remarks about the importance of this holiday, it reminded me of on April 4th, 1968, one of the greatest speeches, I think, in American history on the evening of Martin Luther King's assassination. Robert F. Kennedy, who was running for president at that time, gave one of the most amazing 6-minute spontaneous speeches in American history. And the whole speech, he's got his prepared remarks in his hand like this because he's running for president. You know, as we know, he only had 2 months left to live, but he's trying to speak to a crowd, predominantly African Americans, and he had to announce to them, pre-cell phones, of course, that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And if you ever get a chance to listen to those words so eloquently expressed that night, I think you'll be reminded of what Senator Champion said. And I wanted to look up, because towards the end of his speech, Robert F. Kennedy cites one of his favorite poets, and it's a Greek poet named Aeschylus, and what he said that night was, and even in our sleep, this is to the American people, and even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. And those words rang true on April 4th, 1968, and I think they ring true today, and that's why we need to have June 19th become a holiday. My only regret is, and now I might bring this to education policy, maybe we need to extend the school year to June 20th so that we can teach the meaning of this important date. I might bring that up and see what the children think, but anyways, thank you, Senator Champion.
Senator, what I will say, Madam Chair, is that, again, I do believe that it's American history. And it's not just about pain. It's about excitement, too. It's about progress, too. It's about looking back and being able to look forward. I don't want us to think that it's for a funeral. It's not for a funeral. It's a joyous celebration. And as you talked about Martin Luther King and that speech by the Kennedy on April 4th, I'm reminded of Martin Luther King's most eloquent speech on April 3rd, which was at a Church of God in Christ in Memphis, when he had his notes, and then he wasn't even going to go to the church that evening. His friend kept telling him, come to church, come to church. He's like, no, I'm too tired, no, I'm too tired. But somehow, you know how a friend can convince you to do something that you don't always want to do. And he went to the church, and he talked about getting to the mountaintop, right? And he said, I may not get there with you. See, that's the thing about when you do something. It is not just to benefit you, but it's to benefit those who you love and care about, so that in the future, they have an opportunity to live in a way that we only imagine. But we can count ourselves grateful for the opportunity to propel them to a place or space that they otherwise would not have gone. So, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Are there any other questions? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to apologize. I stepped away. I think Senator Anderson had a question about the fiscal impact, and I know the response was very short. I didn't get the details of that. But could we review why, again, we don't have a fiscal note for something that lets 35,000 Minnesota employees off work for a day?
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski, and I will turn again to Andrew Erickson, our fiscal analyst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the fiscal note, there's no cost to the state because the employees are being paid for days of work regardless. So for a holiday, they're paid, they're just not at work. And then also in most cases, the labor contracts for the state already include Juneteenth as a paid holiday.
So thank you.
Senator Drazkowski?
Thank you. So, Madam Chair, I wonder, can we request an estimate if, of what the amount or the value of that labor is that the state of Minnesota is not getting for yet another day of holiday? I mean, we've got a pile of them in statute. I read here in this section of law. Is there a way to get an estimate of what we are not receiving, the taxpayers of Minnesota are not receiving by 35,000 employees having yet another day off?
Madam Chair?
Senator Champion.
Senator, I thought I heard the fiscal person say that it's already negotiated in their contract, that it's already off and it's already being covered. So this adoption of Juneteenth as a state holiday does not negatively or fiscally impact that. It is a recognition as a state that we do believe this to be a very important day. But as it pertains to a fiscal note, if this particular chair wants to do so, we can certainly make sure that there's a fiscal note if we are going to the floor or if we're going to the Finance Committee. But I think the question around finances has already been addressed as best as I can understand.
Thank you, Senator Champion and Senator Drazkowski.
So Madam Chair.
Senator Drazkowski.
So, and thank you, Senator Champion. I appreciate that. And so maybe he heard the fiscal person differently than I did, but it sounded like maybe all the contracts already have this date in them. Is that what I heard? And if so, members, we're putting this into law. So there'd be no way to negotiate that out of a contract in the future or negotiate contracts differently. So even though we're already doing this, there is a finality in fiscal impact to this that's gone. The administration, the unions can no longer negotiate that. That's locked into law until a future legislature will potentially remove it or change the day or whatever. So I struggle with that. Could we hear again from the fiscal staff, Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Drazkowski, we can hear one more time from our fiscal analyst.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Drazkowski, could I just hear the question one more time? I'm curious exactly what you're looking for.
Yes, do all the contracts already have it? All the labor contracts of all the unions in the state of Minnesota already have this holiday, the day off for people on June 19th?
Mr. Erickson.
Yes, Madam Chair and Senator Drazkowski, that's my understanding, and I believe there's a memo in your packets from MMB that says that the state of Minnesota included Juneteenth as a holiday in employee contracts and plans. So that would be my understanding, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Senator Drazkowski. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. I appreciate your questions. And finally, Senator Gustafson.
This is my first day. I don't know which mic I'm supposed to use. Maybe I'll just turn them both on, and here we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, I was going to just end very quickly and say that everybody spoke eloquently about the importance of it. I'm proud to be, this is my first day here, and to support Juneteenth. And I would also say that as a history teacher, I think this is a more accurate interpretation of the freedoms we enjoy in the United States, because we know that in the beginning, it wasn't for all of us. So I appreciate that this is coming forward. I don't think it's necessary for a fiscal note. I don't think you could put an amount or a value on how important this is. And I hear the resistance on why it should, that this will be in law. I'm proud to support this being in law. I think it's a good thing, and I just wanted to say that I support this, and I'm excited to vote for it.
Seeing no further questions, that I would move that Senate File 13 be re-referred to the Committee on Education, that it be recommended to pass, and be re-referred to the Committee on Education. I'm getting all my advice over here. So Senator Champion's bill is going to go to Education Policy when it leaves this committee after we take a vote. Is everybody ready to vote? Then, with joyful fight, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And those opposed, no? No. Senator Champion, congratulations. Senate File 13 is on its way. This bill has been re-referred to the Committee on Education Policy. Thank you.
Thanks.
I know I want to applaud too, but we don't applaud in committee. So you'll have to, show some other version of your happiness. There you go. Thank you very, very much. Before we get to the next bill, I want to welcome Senator Lang to this committee. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Senator Andrew Lang. I'm from Southwest Minnesota, Senate District 16. I appreciate being added to the committee after my gripe on the floor a few weeks ago about veterans and the veterans aspect to this committee. That's largely probably why I'm here, and I appreciate that. I've been a military member myself for, over 2 decades now. I've been passionate about military affairs since I've been in the Senate, and, follow Senator Anderson's lead, Senator Drazdzinski, sorry. Looking over at him and saying your name. Too many skis. But
There's not too many.
But appreciate the ad. I've been active in outdoor committees and Veterans Affairs throughout my 7 years here in the Senate, so thank you.
Welcome to the committee, and I hope that we can meet together at the Legion in Wilmer for a cold beer and some French fries.
Or Olivia.
Or Olivia. Welcome to the committee. Thank you very much, members. We're going to move to Senate File 1. This is a bill being carried by Senator Jennifer McEwen, who's chairing another committee right now. And in her place, her co-author, Senator Kelly Morrison, is going to be the author of note on this bill. So I'd like to call her up to the table, the testimony table. And I'd like to invite the people who are testifying with her. That would be Christy Hall, Commissioner Marion Green, and Emma Otto to come up to the table to join her. And then I want to make sure that people understand that this is a bill that is moving through the legislature. I know that it has strong emotions attached to it, which is why I said earlier we don't applaud in the committee. In order for us to do our work to reflect the civility and the importance of this issue, I'm going to work very hard to make sure that we stay focused and calm and respectful as we do this work, because that is the best way that we show Minnesotans that we're taking this issue incredibly seriously. I am grateful to see so many people here in the audience, and you are welcome to be here, of course, and to participate. But again, we do have some rules of decorum, and we're going to follow those today to make sure that we are facilitating our work, getting things done in the way that we need to get them done. This is the State and Local Government Committee, so we're going to be focusing specifically on one provision of the bill that talks about local units of government, and I know there are strong feelings about reproductive freedom and abortion. Those are not the topics that we're necessarily debating today, but instead the role of local government or not, as it pertains to people's access to and their rights to bodily autonomy and reproductive freedom. So I want to make sure that I am saying that at the start, that I'm warning everybody, reminding everybody, and asking everybody to focus your comments and your testimony on the issue before us. That will be true for committee members as well. If we have amendments, they should be drawn to that section if we have any amendments at all. All right. Then, Senator Morrison, would you like to move Senate File 1?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to move that Senate File 1 be referred to the Judiciary Committee, be passed and referred to the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Welcome to the committee, and I imagine you'd like to tell us a little bit about the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members, it is my honor to present Senate File 1, the Protect Reproductive Options Act, to the committee today in Senator McEwen's absence. This past summer in June of 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the 1973 landmark Roe v. Wade decision, eliminating the federal right to abortion. This decision was a shattering blow to the right to access abortion in the United States, leaving even more people struggling to access the essential health care they need. The overturning of Roe v. Wade made the United States a global outlier. In the last 3 decades, countries across the world have acted to expand abortion access, but the United States uniquely is going backwards, taking away rights rather than expanding them. In Minnesota, we are fortunate. We already have our own state version of Roe v. Wade called the Doe v. Gomez decision, which established that Minnesotans have a right to abortion care under our state constitution. However, we know from this past year's experience that court decisions are only as strong as the judges that uphold them. What happened at the federal level could happen here too. We shouldn't have to worry that our basic fundamental health care rights might be decimated by a future rogue court. Therefore, we must act now to ensure that our reproductive rights and freedoms are properly recognized and codified into state statute. Senate File 1, the Protect Reproductive Options Act, establishes the fundamental right of Minnesotans to make individual decisions about their own reproductive health care, including contraception, pregnancy, and abortion. Under this bill, reproductive health care discussions will be entrusted to patients and their health care providers. The PRO Act prevents politicians from interfering with a person's fundamental right to make their own personal reproductive health care decisions. The PRO Act is a short, simple bill that will protect Minnesotans' reproductive freedoms and codify our rights into law. It has 5 subdivisions, but our discussion today will be limited to subdivision 5, over which this committee has jurisdiction. And it simply states, subdivision 5 prohibits local units of government from regulating an individual's ability to exercise these fundamental rights more restrictively than set forth in this section. And Madam Chair, I do have several testifiers.
Thank you very much, Senator Morrison, for a very clear and concise description of the proposal before us. I see Commissioner Green coming into the room. We're going to ask you to come up to the table, but we're going to begin with the staff attorney from Gender Justice, Christy Hall.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Christy Hall, and I'm the Senior Staff Attorney at Gender Justice, which is a legal and policy advocacy nonprofit dedicated to advancing gender equity through the law. I wanted to provide a legal perspective for Subdivision 5 of SF1 and the importance that it will have for all Minnesotans to continue to access reproductive health care, including abortion care, in their own communities. And I've had the opportunity to testify at previous hearings for this bill and have gotten to hear lots of opinions on what this bill does. The rhetoric and fear-mongering of those who oppose SF1 fundamentally misrepresent what the bill accomplishes. Because of this, I want to do some level setting about what the bill, and more specifically Subdivision 5, would actually accomplish. So SF1 will solidify in law what the Minnesota State Constitution already tells us, that every Minnesotan has the right to reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy. Municipalities must also meet this bar. Subdivision 5 clarifies that municipalities cannot restrict or ban abortion access. Citywide abortion bans are a strategy that's been used across the country and attempted in Minnesota to limit abortion access and attack providers, including providers that meet with their patients virtually. These bans hurt people in rural areas and people without access to transportation or the time to travel hours and hours to receive care. Like all restrictions on abortion, they hurt the most vulnerable. And I want to be really clear that subdivision 5 is not what's known as a field preemption. Municipalities will be able to pass further legislation to protect or expand reproductive freedom. This bill sets the floor, but cities are able and welcome to further protect reproductive rights within their city limits. And field preemption is when the state tries to eliminate all local regulation in a particular area. I also want to make clear that Minnesotans strongly support bills that protect abortion access. Last month, we commissioned a poll of Minnesota voters, and we found that 75% of Minnesota voters want people to make their own decisions on abortion without the government interfering. The poll also found that 68% of Minnesotans specifically support the repeal of laws that restrict access to abortion. In addition to codifying the right to choose an abortion, it's equally as critical that we repeal the laws that hinder a person's ability to exercise that right. Access was a clear concern for Minnesotans that were polled. A majority supported other policies that would ensure the right to abortion is made real through meaningful efforts to expand abortion access, including Medicaid funding for abortion and legal protections for providers and patients from out of state seeking abortion care in Minnesota. SF1 is an important first step in ensuring reproductive freedom for all Minnesotans, no matter where they live. I urge you to pass SF1. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I appreciate your testimony. And next, I would ask Emma Otto. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? It's a little hard to scoot in with a bump these days. Thank you, Chair Murphy, and the committee for hearing my testimony. My name is Emma Otto, and I'm here to show my support for SF1. Abortions are a necessary part of reproductive health care, and it is important that our state provides the same access to health care in every city and county, rather than requiring the burden to be on the individual Minnesotan to have to map out health care they can and cannot access in any given place. At 5 weeks pregnant with my second child in a hotel room outside Dallas, I prepared for an important in-person client meeting, the main duty of my job and the duty that affects 50% of my salary. When it dawned on me, in another week, I would no longer have access to necessary prenatal or miscarriage care if I had to return to work in the state of Texas. The majority of miscarriages cannot complete on their own and require an abortion to complete them for the health of the mother. I was risking my life to be able to do my job. With Dobbs set to end Roe v. Wade in a matter of weeks, I knew the domino effect of bans that would surround Texas. I acted fast with my company to implement an emergency medical reproductive care program for all employees who have to travel or live in states with abortion bans. It ensures that when an employee or spouse is in a state where abortion is banned, they have access to an emergency medical evacuation flight provided by the company to a state that provides abortion care. While it's a groundbreaking program, it required the sacrifice of my privacy, revealing my geriatric pregnancy well before it was advised to my employer, including C-level executives that I'd never met. It required strength to advocate for myself and countless other employees, and it caused me and my unborn child undue stress because a politician in another state banned abortion care, and I, a working outside the home mother and breadwinner for my family who actively wanted to be pregnant, had to work in that state. This is what patchwork bans do. They open the door for continued discrimination against pregnant workers, and they create barriers to reproductive health care. No Minnesotan should have to travel to get the full range of reproductive health care that they need. It's horrible to think of the devastating consequences we would face if we had portions of our state without access to safe and legal abortion. SF1 is the first step to protecting and expanding abortion access in this state. Please support this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Otto, for being here. Commissioner Marion Green, welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Marion Green, and I serve on the Hennepin County Board of Commissioners. As a former member of the House, it's an honor to be here in front of the Senate committee. Hennepin County is grateful to Senators McEwen and Morrison for moving this legislation forward and is supportive of Subdivision 5 of the bill. The passage of SF1 and codification of abortion access in our state is critical to ensuring that all Minnesotans are able to exercise their fundamental right to reproductive freedom. As the state's largest local government, we have a responsibility to ensure the health, safety, and quality of life of our 1.2 million residents, 1/5 of the state's population. We take this duty seriously, and that includes our birthing residents in need of abortion care. And the current state of abortion access in America means that outstate demand may begin to impact access for our own residents. Our residents already experience devastating disparities in health outcomes. BIPOC people, people with low incomes, LGBTQ people, and people with disabilities continue to be disproportionately represented when it comes to pregnancy-associated deaths. A person's ability to access life-saving reproductive health care should never depend on that person's race, socioeconomic status, immigration status, or zip code. Our official position on this issue is to, quote, ensure reproductive health care services remain accessible and safe to any resident in need of this care while protecting the safety of those providing these legally supported services. While we at the county know that the best defenses against any kind of local action that would limit access to necessary reproductive health care is a clear explanation in state law that localities do not have the authority to restrict the provision of abortion care or otherwise limit abortion access, and in fact can further protect it. The PRO Act is a message loud and clear to the people of Minnesota that we stand with them and will do everything in our power to make sure that abortion remains accessible in our state. To make good on this promise, we have to ensure that all people, no matter where they live in this state, will benefit from that protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that clarity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Senator Morrison, I hope you'll stay, obviously, as the author of the bill. What I'd like to do, committee members, we have 7 additional people who want to testify. I'd like to invite each of them up for 2 minutes of testimony. And then when we're through that, we can take questions for the bill author and any other action. We will be done today at 2:30. We will be voting for this bill and sending it on its way by that time. So I'm gonna be judicious about time. I do want to make sure that people get their time to testify. We're asking people to testify for 2 minutes, and then we will have time for questions, et cetera. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have 2 amendments to the bill.
Thank you for letting me know, Senator Anderson. I appreciate that. Will you have them distributed ahead of time, or are you going to wait and surprise us?
Well, whenever you want to have them distributed, that's up to you.
All right. I think that we should do the testimony first, if that's all right with you. All right. Thank you, Senator Anderson. Thanks for letting us know. All right. So first up, Senator Jaskowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got an amendment as well.
Thank you for letting us know. I appreciate that. All right. So first up, we have a testifier from the ACLU, Munira Mohammed.
Hello to the Chair and members of the Senate. My name is Munira Mohammed. I am with the ACLU of Minnesota. That's the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU of Minnesota is a longstanding organization devoted to protecting our individual rights and liberties enshrined in our Constitution and our laws. Senate File 1 preempts local governments from interfering with an individual's fundamental right to reproductive health care and reproductive health care choices. This is allowed because local governments derive all their power from state law. Even home rule charters have to be in accordance with state law. The overturn of Roe v. Wade has caused a unique fracturing in policy where an individual's rights now depend on the state you live in. Having 50 states set different policies and fundamental rights is not an ideal situation, but it is the one we find ourselves in now. Subdivision 5 of the PRO Act will ensure uniformity and equal access across the state to reproductive health care. It should be noted that other states like Delaware and Colorado have also recently pushed back against local governments restricting abortion rights due to state law taking precedence. Seeing as local governments are subject to state law and we are in a situation where federal protections have been removed, uniformity and consistency should be the goals. The ACLU of Minnesota supports Senate File 1 so that every Minnesotan, regardless of zip code, can meaningfully access reproductive health care and exercise their fundamental right. Thank you to the chair and members.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And just so people know, Deb, you're coming up next. We're timing, and you may hear a timer. We want to make sure that 2 minutes is 2 minutes, and that we're being very fair about that. So if you hear a timer go off, that means your time is up. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name's Deborah Zavosek, and I'm a medical researcher on topics including, but not limited to, drug-facilitated sexual assault. And I have a timeline to offer you today on this discussion of history. In June 2022, in 1973, Roe v. Wade was handed down protecting reproductive rights. I was 14. In June 2022, after 49 years, Roe v. Wade was overturned and reproductive rights were taken. I was 62. Abortion bans were quickly passed in other states, and in November 2022, an ordinance was proposed in Princeburg, Minnesota, to let people sue abortion providers. The ordinance would have been unconstitutional and was unanimously defeated in December of 2022. I was 63. More local attempts at restricting reproductive rights are sure to follow if the PRO Act is not passed in its entirety. Our neighbor, Wisconsin, is operating under a near-total abortion ban based on an 1849 law, when women had no right to vote and more than 3 million Americans were enslaved. In 1849, I was minus 110, as was the Minnesota celebration of Juneteenth. It's 2023, we're in Minnesota, and the time is now. Women and girls are raped and impregnated, sometimes by family members. Lethal pregnancy complications occur and devastating abnormalities. Women struggle to make hard decisions for their health and families. They don't whimsically have abortions, much less late-term abortions, and Minnesota doctors don't perform infanticide. They do their best to provide medically sound and ethical reproductive care. Our Minnesota Constitution protects individual freedom in reproductive health care. Local officials, local governments, and state government must not be permitted to restrict those freedoms. This bill in its entirety is critical. Thank you for prioritizing this issue. Please pass the PRO Act, SF1, to protect reproductive rights in our state and lay critical groundwork to restore and protect the reproductive rights of women across the country. Thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Zavosek. I appreciate that. Next, former Representative Tim Miller. Please join us, and following that will be Russell Rooney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and
Welcome
members.
to the committee.
Pardon me?
Welcome to the committee.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And for the record, I'm Tim Miller. I'm Executive Director of Plan Action, a sister organization to Pro-Life Action Ministries. I've repeatedly heard in committees that after this election, this is the will of the people of Minnesota. And because of time constraints, I can't go into how that can be misleading based on the elections that we saw. But I think it's important to understand a couple points on that. If you look geographically, maybe not by population, but by geography, about 85% of Minnesota is pro-life. The Iron Range largely flipped to Republican side because of this issue. So to say that Minnesota, once they have this, is just not true, and it really is a one-size-fits-all. But as to the tenets of Section 5, members, there's problems with this. There are county and city clinics and hospitals. They're going to have to make tough decisions based off of this. There's building code questions. Local school districts having no voice on abortion will have vans coming to their parking lot. Over in the House, they said this just simply isn't true under this bill. I disagree, but if you disagree on this bill, over in the House we heard HF 91, which will make all of that absolutely true at the local level. This state and these two bodies have consistently said local control is a top priority, and now suddenly we're just excusing it off because it's something that people don't like in the majority. I have one final thing to say, and when I close, I've also repeatedly heard that this is a fundamental right. Members, in our founding documents of this nation, our fundamental right is to life, not to abortion. I'm tired of people saying that there is a fundamental right here when it's written nowhere in our founding documents. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Miller. Appreciate it. Mr. Rooney. And following Mr. Rooney will be Rebecca Messall.
Thank you,
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on the Advisory Board of Life Legal Minnesota and against Senate File 1. Our government was founded on the principle of the people, by the people, and for the people. When we were under British rule, the government could use your house for their troops. Local governments were helpless in stopping this overreach. Senate File 1 is a different type of authoritarian control. Senate File 1 would take away the freedom of local governments to align their ordinances with the values of their community. Local governments would be unable to prevent parents who want to guide their children when they seek to have an invasive, life-altering medical procedure. Adults can legally obtain life-altering medical procedures. Children are not adults and are especially vulnerable at a young age. SF1 has no provision for parents and local governments to protect children from school media pressure that may lead to sterilizations and abortions. Out of respect for local governments, I hope Minnesota will never pass a law that guarantees sex trafficking and prevents local governments from passing ordinances against trafficking in their community. Imagine a local community group that believes sex trafficking helps children both emotionally and sexually. They say, we need to trust the professional traffickers will always do what is best for Minnesota children, unrestricted trafficking at any age. The scenario of this law guaranteeing sex trafficking is absurd. SF1 is also absurd for people who believe in the sanctity of every human life and that local government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. What is proposed with SF1 is even worse than what the British did to local communities. SF1 aligns Minnesota with North Korea, no local government control, and unrestricted abortion until birth.
Mr. Rooney.
Do we want to align
Mr.
closer to
Rooney,
North Korea?
Your time has expired. Thank you very much for coming to the committee. I appreciate your sharing your perspective. It is clear that we have varying perspectives, and I appreciate everybody's civility and thoughtfulness as you are proposing and sharing with you your perspective. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Rebecca Messall, speaking on behalf of myself as a voter in Maple Grove, as the civil rights attorney for the last 10 years. I asked the committee to reject this bill. The proponent yesterday or Tuesday in the House, in answering a question, said this bill is designed to add to the state constitution's rights of religion and conscience. She said, quote, we're just adding to those. In fact, these new rights extend to children of any age as well as men, because the bill gives these rights to individuals, not just women. A bill to amend the state constitution requires the voters to ratify it at a general election, Article 9, Sections 1 through 3. The bill conflicts with a federal law against partial birth abortion. It prohibits schools from protecting students from aggressive companies seeking to market something as undefined as preconception care and things that can cause irreparable physical injury through late-term abortion, abortifacients, and sterilization of children. I'm concerned that a forced urgency to hear this bill has prevented voters from considering the scope of power that this bill is about to strip from them at the school district, city, and county levels. They have a right to consider the ramifications and be involved before this vote is taken. It also appears to violate the state constitution by the way it adds to the decision of Doe v. Gomez, in which the state Supreme Court interpreted the state constitution. Only the judicial branch, not the legislature, can interpret the Constitution after adjudication of certain rights as fundamental. Therefore, the bill violates the state constitution also in Article 3, Section 1, which separates the power between the judicial and legislative branches. Please reject this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. Next is Ann Taylor. Following Ann Taylor will be Christine Wiley. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. Reflecting on America's political development, Tocqueville commented that in America, it may be said that the township was organized before the county before the state, and the state before the union.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Could you please identify yourself for the record? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Ann Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll begin again. I'll just continue here. America's earliest political associations were forged at a local level. As a consequence, they organized and largely governed their day-to-day lives independently and locally. Subdivision 5 eliminates our historical and constitutional right to self-govern. I'm here to say local wills of the government should not be limited. Our basic form of federalism dictates this, especially when you shut down expressions at our smallest form of community government. That is a dictatorship. Freedom of dissent should be cherished, and especially in this case when obviously there is a lot of dissent, we need local involvement. As you can see by the testimony, there is a lot of controversy to this bill. In the last week, I witnessed committee proposed amendments multiple times in both the House and the Senate that were voted down. Obviously, ideology over bipartisanship. Women deserve better than abortion, and this legislation fails women. I know because I'm post-abort twice myself. I was denied the right to view my ultrasound at Planned Parenthood just moments before the abortion took place. The second abortion was performed at a hospital here in Minneapolis by my OBGYN. The ultrasound was never made part of my medical record. I'm not alone. There are thousands and thousands of us, and I promise I'm finishing.
Please, Ms. Taylor.
There is this ideology. We have an ideology, moral integrity, we have common sense, which we're all intrinsically born with. I beg you to have some common sense with your conscience instead of your ideology.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you.
And for recognizing the value of dissent in a democracy. Thank you. You're welcome.
Madam Chair, may I add just one short piece, if it's at all possible? I promise.
Ms. Taylor, I'm asking everybody to adhere to the 2 minutes. And
I
you've
just
had
wanted
more than
to,
your
if
share.
I could,
Ms.
if I
Taylor.
may, quickly refer to the gentleman, the senator that spoke earlier. I just think about the
Ms. Taylor.
lives lost.
Ms. Taylor.
The minorities lost.
Ms. Taylor, I'm so grateful that you're
That
here.
are
But it is
targeted through
important-
abortion.
Ms. Taylor,
The minorities are
Ms.
targeted.
Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Ms. Wiley, please welcome to the committee. Please join us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and honorable distinguished guests here today. My name is Christine Wheely, Subdivision 5, Fundamental Rights, Government Restrictions. I do believe that the government should place restrictions on bills such as SF1. In fact, it is your responsibility to uphold the law. When a bill is being created that is in direct violation of community standards of decency, promotes licentiousness and morality, you are to uphold the First Amendment Establishment Clause and the oath that you took pursuant to Article 6 that states that government actors will not entangle themselves with any religion for the sole purposes of remaining neutral. In a case called Torcazo versus Watkins is upheld by the United States Supreme Court, they found that human secularism is a religion. Secular humanists believe that abortion is not immoral, abortion is not murder, and that life does not begin at conception. These are a set of unproven faith-based assumptions and naked assertions that explicitly link convenience abortions to the religion of secular humanism. And when a state directly funds convenience abortions and convenience abortion facilities such as Planned Parenthood, government actors like yourselves convey to the public and those in opposition that this is the favored religion, secular humanism, of our state. Government actors like yourselves are not to advance, promote, create, endorse any government activities that would convey your entanglement with this. SF1 Subdivision 5, not allowing for any government restrictions, is in direct violation of the oaths that you have taken, the United States Constitution, the First Amendment Establishment Clause, the 10th Amendment, Article 6, and it is also putting taxpayers like myself and others in opposition of this bill in direct violation by default because their conscience is being violated and a government does need to have some restrictions. I urge you to remove Subdivision 5 from this bill. Also, I would like my personal testimony to be included in this as well because I represent the minority. My family, my mother chose life for me here in St. Paul. She was a homeless child on the street. She was raped by a family member. She was sent away. I just found out that her birthrights were given over to my biological father, who made the right decision, and they chose life for me. My mother was 14, my grandmother was 13 years old, okay? And so I also am passionate about this because my life was spared, but also I represent those people in the community who, like my mother, 13, 14-year-olds, and so please include the personal testimony because a lot of the people behind here need to see that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. That is the list of people here who signed up to testify. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for sharing your perspective. It is now time for committee questions and committee amendments. I am understanding there are 3 amendments, and without objection, I think we should just move to the amendments. Senator Anderson, would you like to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have the A17 amendment.
And do you have copies of that?
There should be copies to be passed out.
Thank you. We will get a copy of that to Senator Morrison right away, so you can take a look at that.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Ms. Joan White for putting these amendments together for me.
We are grateful for the council and their expertise. Senator Anderson, would you like to proceed?
Has everyone got the amendment?
Oh, Senator Morrison needs a copy of the amendment.
I do not yet.
As it's being distributed, I want to let people know that in your packets there is a letter of support for Senate File 1 from the Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He was not able to be here today. Senator Anderson, would you like to explain the amendment, or shall we turn to Council White for that?
Well, maybe the council can give us a brief background. Ms. White?
Madam Chair and members, this amendment A17 on page 2, line 1, deletes the word not. So it changes it to a local unit of government may regulate an individual's ability to freely exercise the fundamental rights set forth in this section in a manner that is more restrictive than that set forth in this section. In addition, Madam Chair, if I could do one oral amendment on page 2, line 1.
Please proceed.
Delete the word limitation. So the head note of the subdivision would be local unit of government.
Thank you, Council White. Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, as was testified by several of our testifiers, that they are concerned about the fact of local control being taken away from their overseat oversight. I was just with several legislators and senators the end of December, basically crying out to us to stop mandating things on local government. They were county commissioners and along with their staffs. So this is kind of a preliminary, not preliminary, but a issue of basically giving our local governments the opportunity to make their own decisions and not to have the state mandating this too. And why shouldn't they have local control? I mean, it seems like the state always steps in to go after them with some other mandate, and they keep coming back to us saying, why are you doing this too? So that's the big thing that I was concerned about as I read the bill before committee, that these local units of government, whether they're township or counties, we as state government are mandating things on them that they appreciate. And Madam Chair, I would like a roll call on this amendment.
A roll call has been requested, and a roll call will be granted. Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Anderson. I guess I would just say that this is not a mandate. It actually provides clarity to local governments and protects them probably from costly lawsuits and unnecessary controversy. So I would recommend a no vote on this amendment.
Are there other questions regarding the amendment? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I would differ with Senator Morrison. I don't see anywhere there's any protection or any government protection to the local units of government. This is just, the language in the bill simply tells local governments they, quote, may not regulate. That's what the bill says is written. So as a matter of fact, Senator Anderson's amendment will remove that direction and allow local governments to make their decisions. And so I concur with Senator Anderson's interpretation of the amendment if it was enacted into the bill.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator McQuaid.
I'm pulling the Senator Gustafson over here and doing two microphones. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to be really, really clear about one thing. The Minnesota Constitution provides every Minnesotan the fundamental right to have an abortion, not have an abortion, or decide to have an abortion, or decide to not have an abortion without government interference. It is a fundamental right, much like our right to free speech, the right of religion, freedom of and from religion, fundamental rights, right? And so we already cannot, in local units of government, restrict fundamental rights more than the state does. So the state sets the floor. Local units of government are welcome and able to further protect reproductive rights. They're more than willing and able to protect freedom of speech more than the state does, or religion more than the state does, but they cannot do it less. And so this subdivision, subdivision 5, just explains what already is, because it's very clear through actions that have happened in other states and now here in Minnesota that there is an attempt to subvert the Minnesota Constitution and further regulate an individual's ability to freely exercise a fundamental right. And so I also urge a no vote, because cities, counties cannot further regulate or infringe upon fundamental rights that we have, regardless of what that fundamental right is, just because the folks in that city may want to. And so this is a clarifying piece of a subdivision. It does not do anything that already isn't. It's just clarifying it because it has needed to be clarified through attempts in Minnesota to further regulate fundamental rights.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. That was interesting. I've read the Minnesota Constitution. I don't see any reference to a fundamental right to abortion in the Minnesota Constitution. I think you may be reading it much differently than most Minnesotans. As a matter of fact, members, if indeed there was a fundamental right in the Minnesota Constitution, there wouldn't be a bill before us today by the Democrats. As a matter of fact, if we read the title of the bill, Madam Chair, a bill for an act related to health, establishing a fundamental right to reproductive health. That's what the title of the bill says. The bill, title of the bill says, "This bill establishes a fundamental right." There is no fundamental right in the Minnesota Constitution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski, Senator McQuaid, and soon we're going to move to a vote. Senator McQuaid. All right. I appreciate Senator Anderson's amendment. I see no further questions. Senator Morrison, the bill author, has asked us to vote no. I will say, as a healthcare provider, the indiscriminate treatment, the inadequate, the patchwork of treatment of pregnant people, people who are having miscarriages across this country since the Dobbs decision has been breathtaking and frightening. And creating a patchwork here in the state of Minnesota would advance that harm for pregnant people or people with an ectopic pregnancy or who are miscarrying. And so I would also urge members to vote no on this amendment. And with that, we have before us the A17 amendment, a roll call having been requested. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Chair Murphy?
No.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
No.
Lead Anderson?
Yes.
Senator Barr?
Yes.
Senator Carlson?
No.
Senator Szybowski?
Which ski was that?
I'm sorry. You.
No.
Repeat that for me.
No.
Thanks. Senator Drazkowski?
Aye.
Senator Fateh?
No.
Senator Gustafson?
No.
Senator Jasinski?
Aye.
Senator Lang?
Aye.
Senator McQuaid?
No.
Senator Morrison?
No.
Eight yeses. Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
Thank you. There being yeah, I believe that there are 5 yeses and 8 noes, and therefore the amendment is not adopted. Senator Anderson, do you have another amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, since we don't agree on the fact that the word "not" should be taken out, I suggest that we take up the A18 and the gist of that. Maybe Ms. White can give us some background. And if we could pass that out, I'd appreciate it.
We'll have the pages distribute the amendment as swiftly as possible. Thank you for getting it to Senator Morrison, and I'd like a copy as well. And while that is being distributed, if Council White could explain to us the amendment so we can have it before us, the A18, please.
Madam Chair and members, the A18 amendment deletes subdivision 5, which is the local unit of government limitation subdivision.
Senator Anderson, do you have anything that you want to add in addition to the testimony you've already given on this provision?
Well, Madam Chair, I just think that this is not a necessary need in the bill that's being provided here. I think testimony's already been given regarding the word "not" being allowed or being allowed, whichever, and we've heard a lot of testimony on the issue of subdivision 5. So, Madam Chair, I just think that we would appreciate a yes vote on deleting subdivision 5 in the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Anderson,
Madam Chair, could I get a roll call?
a roll call has been requested. A roll call is granted on the A18 amendment. Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Anderson. You know, I would recommend a no vote on this amendment, and the reason is because I think it's important that we be explicit in law. The anti-abortion movement has really created a new landscape in our country. Even before Roe versus Wade was overturned, anti-abortion extremists were passing ordinances in states that aim to ban abortion. This has created fear and confusion for both patients and providers. We really can't let that happen in our state. So I think it's important that it's stated explicitly, so I would recommend a no vote on this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Are there questions? Seeing no questions, Senator
Madam Chair.
Anderson? Senator
Well,
Anderson.
I just would go back and say that the closest thing to local government, the closest thing to the people are the local units of government, which is our townships, which is our subcommittees within the townships, and those people that are in the county government, and those subcommittees that are reaching out by commissioners, and that is very important. And when we can't allow them to have a say in what happens and the way things take place in their communities, it's I think a crime, because we're leaving out those voices that we need to have. As legislators represent these areas, we have opportunity to meet with these local groups, these local units of government. And I just think it's time that we allow them to have that wherewithal to hear the voices of the local constituents and make their decisions based on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. I appreciate that. And as Senator Morrison has described earlier, that by making sure that we are in state law stating what we believe are the fundamental rights, what we know to be the fundamental rights regarding reproductive freedom is a floor for the state of Minnesota that we need to build upon. And allowing local units of government to reduce or strip the rights, the fundamental rights, reproductive rights of people, would be a miscarriage of justice. And with that, we can call for the roll on the A18 amendment.
Chair Murphy?
No.
Vice Chair Mitchell?
No.
Lead Anderson?
Yes.
Senator Barr?
Aye.
Senator Carlson?
No.
Senator Swadzinski?
No.
Senator Drazkowski?
Aye.
Senator Fateh?
No.
Senator Gustafson?
No.
Senator Jasinski?
Aye.
Senator Lang?
Yes.
Senator McEwen?
No.
Senator Morrison?
No.
There being 8 noes and 5 yeses, the amendment is not adopted. Senator Jaskowski, your
Thank you.
amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got the A20 amendment, and I believe it'll be passed around.
Thank you, Senator Jaskowski. I appreciate that. We'll make sure we get this to people.
Madam Chair,
Senator Anderson.
could you read the last count that was on the tally of the voters of the Senate committee?
There were 8 noes and 5 yeses.
Thank you. I had it had a difference, so
I appreciate it.
I was hoping for better numbers.
All right. Before us, we have the A20 amendment. Senator Jaskowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as we look at this bill, it attempts to bring forward a top-down approach across the state that fails to respect the differences that we see in different parts of our state. We have very diverse state members, from Minneapolis to Worthington to Caledonia to Silver Bay to Baudette. and everything in between. We have lots of differences, not only on this issue, but many, many issues, but especially, members, this issue. In my rural communities, contrasted to St. Paul or Minneapolis, we have multiple Senate districts in both of those two cities. The difference couldn't be bigger in terms of people's belief around this issue. For us to have a bill that doesn't respect the diversity of our state doesn't reflect well on us. And what this amendment does is it says that if the local people put together an ordinance around this issue that varies from this bill, should it be successful, that the local ordinance would be the one that would be respected in law. That members would respect the diversity of thought, opinions, beliefs, and people in our state. This bill as presented does not, so this would fix that problem. I appreciate your support and ask for a roll call, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. A roll call has been requested. A roll call is granted. Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Drazkowski. You referenced that this is a top-down approach. I guess I would argue that this is a bottom-up approach. We do have a diverse state, and this bill honors and recognizes that, and it says that your individual rights should not be limited by where you live. And so I would recommend a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. Are there questions about the amendment? Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Morrison, I realize that our scope on this bill is rather limited in the state and local gov aspect to it. Obviously, veterans don't look at this very closely. But I think it's important we kind of get down to brass tacks on it. Can you do me a favor? And I know that you have a profession in which you're well-versed, so could you do me a favor and tell me what an abortion is and possibly go through the procedure?
Senator Morrison, I will allow you, it's up to me, to, from your professional perspective, answer the question, but I do not want us to get too far afield. This is state and local government. We're talking about subdivision 5. And with that, please proceed, Senator Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Lang. I don't think that is relevant to our discussion today, but an abortion is a termination of pregnancy.
Thank you, Senator Morrison.
And Madam Chair?
Senator Lang.
It's a termination of pregnancy. Now, I heard a community in my district that was mentioned earlier in the day. Do you believe that community has the same beliefs as you do?
Senator Morrison.
Madam Chair, Senator Lang, we're talking about individual rights, not communities imposing their beliefs on individuals. This is about very personal, private reproductive health care decisions that should be left to the individual.
So,
Senator Lang.
Madam Chair, we've been kind of around the local control aspect to it. I can attest that I think Princeburg, Minnesota was chosen for a reason, and it's because they vote 99% Republican. They're 99% pro-life. Now, I respect the 1% that thinks differently than the rest of the people in that community do. But do you think that community has the right to stop an abortion clinic from building in their town?
Senator Morrison.
Madam Chair, Senator Lang, I do not believe that that community has the right to prevent that individual from receiving the health care that they need.
Do they have the right?
Senator Lang.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Do they have the right to put an ordinance up so they do not build an abortion clinic in a town that views it that heavily?
Senator Morrison.
Madam Chair, Senator Lang, I would defer zoning questions to the local units of government.
Thank you, Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I'm going down this rabbit hole because I think we are doing something unilaterally that presses opinions upon our local state and our local largely rural areas that, for the most part, don't believe that what you believe. They don't believe this is a fundamental right. This is they believe that the fetus and the baby are a fundamental right to life. as well. So I think this is a mistake, this bill in general, the path it's following. I'm going to be voting no on everything. I'm going to be voting yes on Senator Drazkowski's amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I appreciate that, Senator Lang. I understand and appreciate the strong feelings. Princeburg took up this issue, and they set it aside largely because they were warned that it was not constitutional. That was the city elected officials. And you say 99% of people in Princeburg would support that and 1% not. As a registered nurse, as a politician, but as a registered nurse, that 1%, that person has the ability and the right wherever they live to make this decision for themselves. This is not about a local government. This is about an individual and their ability to make a choice for themselves. And so if the 99% of people in Princeburg do not want to have an abortion, they won't. But for that 1%, that one person, if that's their choice, the standard of care should be the same across the state of Minnesota, and they should have access to safe and legal care. And with that, are there other questions before we take a vote on this amendment? Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your discussion on the amendment, but the reality is this amendment looks at the ability for municipalities to do different things, not the individuals within them. It doesn't limit them to do whatever they want to do, wherever they want to go in the state or a neighboring state or a neighboring country. It doesn't affect that at all. What it does is it affects the policy in the local municipality. We have a huge diversity throughout Minnesota, and this bill, the way it's written, stomps all over it. We need to adopt this amendment to respect that diversity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there other questions before we come to a vote? Senator McEwen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to be respectful of the time, and so I was looking to you to say, do we have time? I want to be, I know it's 2:31. I want to be really, really mindful of the fact that 1 in 4 people with uteruses are going to have an abortion in their lifetime. They have them from all over the state, from all different kinds of backgrounds, from all different kinds of faiths. And Senator Drazkowski, we agree very, very much that people have differing beliefs and differing opinions about abortion, about growing their family, about starting their family, about having children, not having children, having more children. What this bill does is make sure that every single person's belief about what they do with their family, with their bodies, with their lives, is able to be honored. What your amendment is trying to do is to make sure that places where people who are in power might disagree with some of the decisions and beliefs that individual Minnesotans have, that they get to impose their beliefs on others. And that is what we're trying to prevent with subdivision 5, is that we don't want it to be ambiguous, that local units of government have the ability to restrict people's ability to access reproductive health care. And let's be honest, the ordinance wasn't to restrict people's access to health care. It was to allow private citizens to sue one another for tens of thousands of dollars for providing care and charge them with felonies for providing it, right? So it's pitting Minnesotan against Minnesotan. And so I really want to just make it clear that there are very diverse beliefs all across the state. But if we let people in power say, you have to do this when you are pregnant, you have to have an abortion, you have to remain pregnant. When you have an abortion, here's the kind of abortion you must have at this point in pregnancy, at this point in your life, when you have this number of children, when you don't have this number of children. That is what we are weighting down when we let people in power, whether it's the state government, the federal government, or local units of government say, because I believe this, now you all have to do that. We are trying to get out of people's business. We are trying to make sure that the individual beliefs of Minnesotans are honored so that they can make personal decisions about their lives and their families. And so I also urge a no vote, but I just want us to be mindful that a quarter of people with reproductive age are going to have abortions. They live in every single one of your communities, whether it's the 99% of people who are pro-life. Most people identify themselves as pro-life and pro-choice, or they identify themselves as pro-choice or neither. People have abortions. A quarter of people with uteruses are going to have abortions in their lifetime. So we need to be mindful that when we talk about these folks, they're in this room, they're in our communities, and we need to make sure that their beliefs and their values are respected and able to exercise their healthcare decisions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator McQuaid. Senator Drazkowski has moved the A20 amendment. A roll call has been requested. Would the clerk take the roll?
Chair Murphy.
No.
Vice Chair Mitchell.
No.
Lead Anderson.
Yes.
Senator Barr.
Aye.
Senator Carlson.
No.
Senator Swazinski.
No.
Senator Drazkowski.
Aye.
Senator Fateh.
No.
Senator Gustafson.
No.
Senator Jasinski.
Aye.
Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator McQuaid.
No.
Senator Morrison.
No.
Thank you. There being 8 noes and 5 ayes, the A20 amendment is not adopted. Members, we have before us Senate File 1. Are there further amendments? Senator Drazkowski, give me the finger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious if we have a roll call on this yet or not. I yield to Senator Anderson.
Madam Chair, I would ask for a roll call on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. A roll call has been requested. A roll call is granted. Are there other comments before we take action on this bill? I appreciate, again, everybody's patience and their civility. I also want to say thank you to the sergeants who are here. I appreciate your presence, but mostly to everybody. I know this is a challenging issue for some, and I appreciate everybody's patience and civility, which is often in short supply these days. So before us, we have Senate File 1, which I would move to be re-referred to the the Committee on Judiciary. A roll call has been requested. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Chair Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Mitchell.
Yes.
Lead Anderson.
No.
Senator Barr.
Nope.
Senator Carlson.
Yes.
Senator Swazinski.
Yes.
Senator Drazkowski.
No.
Senator Fateh.
Yes.
Senator Gustafson.
Yes.
Senator Jasinski.
Sorry, Madam Chair, no.
Senator Lang.
No.
Senator McQuaid.
Yes.
Senator Morrison.
Yes.
On the matter before us, there being 8 ayes and 5 noes, Senate File 1 has been adopted as recommended. We're moving on to the Judiciary Committee. Senator Morrison, thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say before we close up today?
I have some closing remarks, but I think in the interest of time, we can be done. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you, Senator Morrison. I thank everybody. That there is no more business before this committee. We are adjourned.